Welcome to iPen Podcast. My name is Joanne Cox.
Hi, I'm Nanette Buchanan, and this is Let's Talk About It. What's up, Joanne?
It's all about miscommunication. And I think we do that more than just communicate.
You know, I was just getting ready to say that. Miscommunication is something that's regular.
Yes.
And why? Why?
Because we're not good listeners.
So, with that being said, if we break down communication, communication is more than just speaking. It includes listening.
Yes.
It includes gestures. So that's nonverbal as well as verbal communication. And it still gets crossed.
Yes.
So, okay, you already said we don't listen well. Gestures, we don't interpret well.
Right.
Voice, we don't understand well.
Right.
So what do we do?
Well, I want to bring it back to an old school game we used to play back in elementary.
Not telephone. That never went right.
All you do is tell one person something, and you go through back then, probably 28 people in a class.
Oh,
and
no.
At the end, it would have no resemblance of what the first person started.
And why do you think that is?
Sometimes it was just the vocal range. Maybe you didn't hear one word and you just decided to speculate. Maybe that's what he or she said.
And we're going to stop right there for a minute and talk about that.
Yes.
So in other words, I got it from you. I already know I need to pass it on. And I took it without even understanding what you said.
Exactly.
Without going back and confirming what was said, because the message had to go on.
Yes. So that's important. Yes.
So go ahead. What's the next reason why?
The other reason is we think so quickly. We think before the person finished the statement.
And we're going to stop right there. So I took the message from you, and my mind was already on delivering the message before I got the complete message, or before I understood the complete message, or before I checked the complete message. Okay. So go ahead.
Vocal range. Now, what does that mean? Just because I was speaking so loudly, you took it as I was really upset, but I was really excited.
So I'm reading your emotions. I'm reading your tone. I'm reading how you're speaking to me, not what you're saying. So my communication that's supposed to be passed on is lost. Okay. Where else do we lose it?
One more that I have to offer. Facial expression.
So instead of me listening to your words, instead of me sharing my understanding with not only understanding your words, but understanding your facial expression, I've taken my mind totally off of what you're saying, and I'm paying attention to what you're saying with your gesture.
Exactly. If I were to say, I am so happy, Nanette, about your anniversary. It has been so wonderful just knowing you.
And as you change your face, I know doggone well that ain't what you mean. Yes, yes. And isn't that amazing that just with just a little communication, that little sentence, because I'm quite sure when you're passing it around to those 28 people, you're not giving a whole paragraph. You're just doing a little short sentence.
One sentence. That's it.
And with that one sentence, it gets turned around 28 different times. And it may very well have turned around with the first person getting it. So we can understand how a lot of the communications we get through the social media, through the television, through our own one-on-one conversations is misinterpreted. Well, I've got another one for you. What about the connotation of what you're saying?
Yes.
How about if I'm talking about a grown man and I'm telling you about what he's done, but I say, that boy don't know what he's doing. The connotation of the word boy And that word boy can be interpreted in so many ways.
Yes.
Because it could mean that he did not grow up.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the negative for our black men to be called boy when they're men.
Yes.
Because they go back into history about that word boy.
Yes.
So a lot of times, it's not even the interpretation. It comes from the connotation.
Exactly.
It comes from your history in the words. What words are being used? The slang. What about when you have the slang words?
Yes.
Some of the slang that we used to say is no longer slang today.
Right.
And some of the words today, I don't even know what they're saying.
Well, what I want to point out to the listeners is that the most misinterpreted things that take place on a day-to-day basis, the sad part is that the other person has no idea that gave the message. They have no idea
that they even gave a message that went out and wasn't understood.
That was not understood. So now you are continuing with your day believing that the person
expressed what it is.
Has taken it the way you wanted it to be received.
And that comes from what I call not fulfilling your end of the communication. And a lot of times we don't. I mean, that's a professional thing that I learned, and that's something that I learned in teaching communication, that we have to get a confirmation.
That's the word.
From the person that they understood exactly what we were saying. A nod of the head, a gesture that says, I got you. You know, anything that the light in their eyes when you say something about something that's good. You can kind of know that they're understanding what you said. And a lot of times, I remember I was talking to someone the other day, and they said that they were reading that as a therapist, they were not to say to the patient, this exercise is this, that, or the other. Now, does that make sense? That was a demeaning phrase to some of the patients. And the person was saying, she was saying, so what was I supposed to say? Do you get it? She said, what was I supposed to say? Do you understand? What was I supposed to say? She said, all of those other things seems to make it seem like I'm the authority. And you are below any understanding of these simple exercises.
Okay.
So she said my thing was to always say, does that make sense? So that they can see the benefit of what I was giving them. So in the communication, whoever wrote the article that she was reading had already interpreted that by you saying does it make sense meant that you didn't think they had sense.
Oh, okay.
So it's the interpretation, the connotation of how you say it. And she said, well, I just want to make sure that I'm not offending anyone. She said, but I never thought about it being offensive.
And see, that in itself is a good point, because I would not have taken it that way. But you don't know how the other person is going to take it. But just look at it in the business world. People will call and leave messages on your phone. And they assume you know what they're talking about.
Or who they are and where they're from.
You know, it's just like, oh, well, Joanne talks to me every day, once a day, so I don't have to say my name. And you can cut down on it when you call and say, hello, my name is Harry, and I'm calling in reference to making an appointment with you at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. But instead, they say, call me back.
Well, not only that, the thing is that, like you said, that's all communication. And then the callback is the communication too. Now I'm calling back. I have no idea who called me. I have no idea what they called about. But I know that this number said, call me back. The receptionist has no idea who I am.
Right.
No idea who called me. No idea what they called about. So the communication is lost.
Yes.
And it's dropped. And a lot of times we have to think about, do you really want your communication or what you're trying to convey to be dropped? Do you want it to be lost simply because it wasn't clearly understood?
Yes.
That just does not make sense. You have to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. And in our gestures, you know those gestures.
Yes.
Sometimes we'll make gestures and not even know we're making them. You know, we try to hide the fact that our eyebrows raised, or we rolled our eyes, or we smirked. You know, we try to hide those gestures, but those gestures speak.
And we also have to understand that there are people that make gestures that have nothing to do with what they're saying.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
A lot of people don't like their teeth to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to speak to you without showing.
So it sounds muffled. Yeah. And not only that, you're looking at them saying, well, what is wrong with this person?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then in turn, you make a gesture because you're showing in your forehead area.
You're confused.
That you're confused?
Yes.
I don't understand.
And a lot of times, I know, that, again, going back to when I was teaching and instructing, I could read the room, and you see that deer in the headlight look, and okay, they didn't get that. Okay, let me start over again and try to pick up the ones that I lost. Mm-hmm. Because in a classroom presentation, you're trying to make sure that everyone is getting the message, mm-hmm. especially if they have to be tested on it. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that they got it, and you're looking across, and no one's raising their hand with any questions. And no one's saying anything, mm-hmm. but you can tell by just looking at them, they didn't get it. It went clear over their head. And you don't want to say, I know you didn't get it. Or one of our sayings were, because you couldn't say anything derogatory, but they knew if we called them a genius that they were not the top in the class. Just in us saying it, they knew. Oh no, they're not talking about me, so I must have missed something. Yes. So you have to find a way to get people to understand what you're saying and make sure that you're understood. So asking a question is not a problem. Asking them at the end of it, did you understand? Or can I explain it to you again? Do you need a step-by-step instruction? Mm-hmm. Especially in these days and times with laptops and how do you send this and how do you send that? A lot of it is confusing.
Yes. So
you don't want to keep rambling on and lose the person.
And some of the keys that you have miscommunicated or the people did not receive what you wanted them to mm-hmm. is having to repeat yourself mm-hmm. on a regular basis, or people asking you questions that you've already answered. Mm-hmm. So when you know these things, know that good communication is a skill and it can be taught and you can learn new skills.
Exactly.
But you first have to understand that you need them.
And not only that, don't assume that everyone is understanding it.
Yes.
You can't assume that. How about silence? Is that a communication?
Definitely.
Silence speaks loudly. Even though it's a silence, you look at it and you say, hey, ooh. Did they understand? Because
even if you don't make a sound.
No one made a sound. No one responded. Mm-hmm. No one laughed at your joke. And it's supposed to be a joke.
Yes.
You understand that I missed the cue. Mm-hmm. I missed the communication.
Or I was offended.
Yes.
So I know you're going to let us know something that we'll always remember.
Well, just like you said, between that first person and that 28th person, the worst distance between two people is misunderstanding the communication.
Very well said. And I got it.
Did you? I'd like to thank you for joining in this week's podcast with my partner, Joanne Cox. I'm Nanette Buchanan, and we'd like you to tune in every week. Even if you want to come in and just look at the other podcasts that you've missed, they're there. Tune into our YouTube channel for iPen Podcasts. Let's talk about it.
See you next week.
Rewind the track, yeah.